I am so ready. I came in singing, and I don't know why. Hey, everybody in the Metal Lab, it's live, and it's properly numbered, even though I'm pretty sure the link, thumbnails, etc. are incorrectly numbered, and I apologize for that. A little bit of copy-paste error. Anyway, I'm Jason, and I am joined this week by...
Hi, it's me. I have a name that I forgot.
Apparently, he's forgotten his own name. His name is Jay. You didn't lose that badly this weekend. You actually beat me, so what do you got to be worried about? A little bit of a pre-introduction to what we're going to be discussing this week, as this week myself and Jay, joined by Tom and our friend Emily, made our way to the ROC Provincial Cup in Quebec. Actually, it was in Montreal, Quebec, at a store called Geekitude. It's actually not your traditional specific game store. It's a game store, that's for sure, because you could get your Magic the Gathering fix, your Heroclix fix, and your video game fix. I was quite taken aback by how much game stuff they just like. This is definitely a game store for sure, and it was really cool to be inside. But yeah, we made a fairly long trip. I think, Jay, your trip started sooner. So how about you? You start with the whole trip of the weekend, as it were.
Okay. Started off with triple thousandth checking that everything was in order, along with the anxiety of I didn't have one of my game elements because I was getting it from you, because of course borrowing things from you is like borrowing things from the local library. We appreciate you and your benefit are a big benefit to society. So I met up with Tom and Emily at Tom's work, and then we drove to pick you up. And then by the time that we left there, it was around 6.
Yeah.
We did a bunch of driving, bunch of stops. By the time we got to the hotel, it was between 12:30 and 1 in that general area.
Yeah.
Then Emily and I did some play testing. I was running the most annoying team in the world, which I will try and present to the camera. We have the Joker, and we have his other delightful, fun, very established friend, the Joker. And on both these Jokers, we have Possessors. Proteus obviously makes Joker much more playable with stats, and if you do manage to kill him, in this particular case, is 50-point line. So if you hit him about 100,000 times, you will have to deal with Proteus. I also had a Thug. Nice little Thug. This is actually, I made sure that this is not going to be visible on the camera, but I marked my Thug, which technically makes him tournament illegal because I did stuff to the base, but this is the Thug that I played at the U.S. Cup with the Quinjet team. I'm bringing it up. I'm bringing him back. Brainiac works really well on the other Joker because mid-dial, he gets Pulse Wave, which can combine with his Give 2 tokens out, so he becomes mini-mixy at that point. In addition to these characters, we had the Boxing Ring, because staying safe and snug and secure is kind of what this team wants to do. And we also had a full round table, or teleporter now, I have to remember. We had Shield level 7, Atom, Spider-Man, Superman, Nightwing, IDs, and Green Arrow. Sadly not with the awesome new Green Arrow, but the running shot Green Arrow with the lovely beard and mustache. So the base idea of the team is call and ID card characters. Joker's hard to kill because Stealth, Mastermind, can't be Precision Strike, has a stop click with Mastermind, so you cannot ignore it by any game effect except for stuff like Green Arrow, Peggy, or Nick Fury. And by the time he gets to that click, those resources are hopefully used up. So it is next to impossible to kill him. It's almost like the newer version of the Trinity War Luther team that George Massou popularized. So when we got to the hotel, I did a playtesting game with Emily, who was running Overdrive-based Sam Cap team with Clarion and Shredder Clone. So that was good to get some playtesting in because I had not played this team yet, and practice is good sometimes. Or as Tom would have said that night, snarkiness and sarcastic comments make your team better.
There's a couple other ones. I think he said a lack of sleep makes your team better. Playing the game while not sleeping makes your team better. Consuming alcohol while playing your team at the night before the tournament makes your team better. I've got a video evidence of all the thing of him saying all of this too. I'm working on a traveling to play Heroclix documentary at this point. That's going to be a ton of fun, and some of these things are going to make their way in it. Sorry, Jay. Carry on.
So we get to the store, and it's a lovely store, as you described. So my round, this ended up being 12 players. We did 4 rounds, cut to top 4. So my round 1 was against Chad, who is a local and one of the more well-known, better players from the area. He was running a monster theme team, which was Mini Shredder, along with Goblin King, who picked up a symbiote. We also had Venom Pool with Brainiac and a couple mandatory meta ID cards. Shield level 7, Spider-Man, and another that I can't remember, but it was one of the obvious ones. But it wasn't Green Arrow, I don't think. Regardless, so I won map roll and put us on the Sporting Arena, I think, to get the map bonus on the Joker, because he starts with a 17, gets +1 from Brainiac, and that's a 19 from range with the map bonus of +1 defense from range, which I think is the same as what the Invisible Jet one is. And if they're shooting into the ring, good luck, basically, is the idea. And I ended up winning this game just between all of the poison I have, including poison that was penetrating to his whole team, just whittling them down. Joker being both kind of the important character on my team, being the main mastermind fodder, as well as being effective at dealing damage with Proteus, makes it so that the opponent, if they're not quite prepared for this kind of team, has no idea what to do and where to focus their energies, because you just keep on hitting Joker either way, and he just says, okay, that's fine. Whatever. I'm okay with this. So that ended up being a win. Round 2 is against that Jason guy who ended up winning the event. I think he's on the show right now. Hi.
Where'd he go?
Get him out of here. He's a Canadian. So that game, I will let you describe it more, but that was an incredibly close game, which I believe you deserved to have won. So I got very lucky. Unfortunately, it ended up being 40 points to 25. So, yeah, not the best as far as points goes. Then I played against Tom, which is never a good thing to know that you're going to have to do in a competitive tournament. In a casual one, sure, go for it. But in competitive, not as much. He was playing a scientist-based cool team with the teleporter, as usual. His main character was Swarm. He also had some other cool pieces to go with it, as well as the Ameritrade, who's apparently a scientist, and a Serpent Spider-Man Pug. Not the Punisher, the Spider-Man Pug, as you ended up learning. So this game ended up being, we both got to Power 3. He KO'd some regular columns that I had done. I used my Power 3 to kill his Swarm in one hit after not attacking him the whole game. And after we tallied the points and counted again, because it was so close, it ended up being 280 in his favor to 275 for me. That was kind of disheartening, but also not the worst thing, because that's almost the equivalent of a full win. So that was good. And then in the 4th and final round of Swiss, I played against Carlos. And that was not great, because he was playing a really good team, and he destroyed me. He was running Jakeem Thunder, Al Jordan, Alan Scott Green Lantern, 3 IDs, the mandatory one, so Spider-Man, Green Arrow, level 7. No possession on Jakeem, as well as Supreme Intelligence. And I believe he also had the boxing ring. So basically what ended up happening was Jakeem called in Nick Fury. Nick Fury attacked the Joker, and then Green Arrow finished the job with because he is low enough points that Al Jordan could call him in. And also, between picking powers on both of them and Al Jordan coming with Perplex, he can up those call-in stats mighty, mighty fine. So he wrecked me. And at the end, we found out that the point difference between 4th, 5th, and 6th, 6th being the place that I got, was incredibly tight. So that was fun. Then we played a Battle Royale. That was also fun. I always enjoy those when I get knocked out. And I guess since you're going to be a little longer than me, I'll also mention that we had the usual competitive tournament today at 401 for practice for next week's Ontario Provincials at Comic Warehouse. So I ran almost the exact same build, but I did some minor switching around. I threw in Swordsman ID instead of Nightwing because I wouldn't be able to borrow the Nightwing again from you, Jason, to basically give either one of my Jokers Flurry Blades. Because the Killing Chair Joker starts with it. The other Joker either gets Flurry or Blades, so that's a lot more damage output. And I also threw War Machine in there for Peace Machine, which I never used. So I ended up basically losing the whole tournament to Mike because I rolled a 1 instead of a 3 on an awesome Penetrating Blades from Swordsman. That was fun. And I got really lucky because our local friend, Devin, happened to pull Chase Green Arrow and ended up lending to me for the next week's event, which I was very grateful for. Thank you very much. And I'm happy to actually be able to play it now because it's a new staple. So all in all, great weekend of Heroclix.
Awesome. Mine started basically the week I decided to show up to this tournament. And from Monday to Thursday, my life was at my desk at work. And what's more is there's a barbecue at work on Friday where it was really enjoyable but I didn't partake too much because I needed to make sure I was out in time so I wasn't keeping everybody waiting too long. So yeah, at 6 o'clock, Mike, the folks arrived, and that being Jay, Tom, and Emily, to greet me from the office. We left there and made the long trek. Now, I don't know if anybody's been incredibly exhausted and tired and lacking sleep, but on the Friday, I had to be at work early still to guarantee my out time, and that put me awake at 5 in the morning. So by the time we got to the hotel, which was about midnight, as Jay said, and I think we finally decided bed was a good time at 2 a.m., I'd been up for a good solid 20 hours, 21, give or take. So I basically had the effects of being drunk, plus also had 2 beers in the hotel. So I was basically worthless for the night. Couldn't get any last-second practice in, but I had some games throughout the week with Amber to get a good feel for my team. So I knew the decisions I could make, the things I could do, and all the things I had to watch for because of a few games with her. So thanks to my lovingly wonderful wife, Amber, and everything that she does to help me out and get good, as it were. So the next day, of course, we made our way to the, as Jay said, we got there, blah, 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 really cool store. And things got underway. Round 1, I'm going to apologize now. I was still very kind of worn out, very tired the day of the tournament. We had to be up at like 7 in the morning to make sure we were all showered, etc., at breakfast in us in order to get to the venue in time. So my name memory is really weak. I remember maybe 3 or 4 of the last players I played against, or who I don't already on a regular basis play with, and that would be my first and third round opponent. So I'm apologizing to them now. My first round's opponent knew I could see, and he actually admitted to me, to competitive play. His team consisted of a Nick Fury and a Spectre, both possessed by Nick Fury had a Brainiac on him, which I found out later. There was a little bit of confusion with it. No big deal. There was a Spectre that also happened to have Jay has been wonderful enough to remember that they tracked on the win. Apparently I have to be logged in for that. Oh, man. The wonders of being Jason right now. All right, where was I? I was saying stuff. So what ended up happening is my opponent's greenness showed a little in the matchup. For those of you who weren't on the Facebook, I should probably tell you what my team was. I was using Devil Dinosaur along with Al Jordan and a Penguin. Had a Ameritrade and the Atom on my board as well, backed up with a Justice League teleporter. Of course, the idea is to use the Pogs to get my opponents to hit them and move the teleporter along the dial a lot faster. And as a result, in my first round against Gabriel, he ended up just attacking everything that was in front of him. And that's kind of that greenness that shows through in the early days of competitive play. It's like kill everything, get it dead, without the possible knowledge of what that could mean in the long term. So, when he kills a Pog, I'm able to not only Colossal Retaliate, but I'm also able to move my round table a lot faster. And one of the first things I did as far as retaliation was concerned was took a double token Spectre and put him in front of my team for me to call somebody in and, just kind of do what my team does. That's kind of how it went. It's the best way to describe it without going into great amounts of detail. My second round was against Jay, and Jay wanted me to describe this a little better. And I want you to put yourself in a situation that you've probably never been in, folks. Imagine a world where you have set up so wonderfully to kill something, require a little bit of follow-up on the first attack, only to knock something back so far out of your own reach that you cannot touch it. That is exactly what happened. You see, Jay, in his enthusiasm to use poison to not move my round table, neglected to remember that damage is damage as far as Colossal Retaliation is concerned. So when his Killing Joke Joker, the camera Joker, decided he was going to poison my Pog, the Ameritrade said, "That's cool. I'm going to attack your team and put you over here," which was where I wanted to take a green arrow shot with Adam. He also didn't used Outwit and increase his defense. As a result, he didn't actually have a defense power that wasn't coming from his dial, from his possessor. Basically, every damage that my green arrow planned on doing, he was going to do. And he did it. But I rolled a double on 5 damage with knockback. So I knocked the Joker 5 squares backwards. Well away from my own team and my own attempts at follow-up. And I didn't end up getting the chance to finish that Joker. Ended up using 2 ID cards and lost both my Colossal Retaliators. Only killed his Thug. Jay used 1 ID card, and I got one of the tokens off of the Joker. Did you lose other tokens off the Joker other than that one, or?
In general, he never. I think the most I've ever seen him lose was 3, and that was today. That wasn't even yesterday.
Yeah. And I'm guessing that was in a situation where the game was basically not going in your favor anyway, right?
That was actually a game where I won, but that was basically all that could get done. Like, technically, against Carlos, my Joker stayed alive, but I basically conceded because I knew he wasn't going to attack him to turn the table, so he was alive still, but I just conceded. So he never went all the way down.
Okay.
But I think actually Emily got him down 4 tokens at one point, which is really cool.
Okay. So in my third round, I was up against, and I have to check names because he's another player local to the scene, and his name is also Jason. How could I forget that name? That was the joke going on. This is how tired I was, guys. My third opponent had the same name as me, and I was so tired I couldn't remember it. But I did remember distinctly that his team consisted of a Mercury, the Claw, and an Al Jordan, along with the Drummer. Really interesting team to play against. The Claw is a lot more of a pain in the butt than I've ever given him credit for, let me tell you. But this was another game where I guess, again, if you're not fully aware of what my plan is, you're going to do things that I want you to do, such as energy exploding and pulse waving groups of my Pogs. He would clear out Pogs. I would throw more at him. I'd move my round table over and over again. Got it very quickly to click the power number 2. And by this point, I was just choosing powers that are awesome and doing what I wanted as far as attacks. For the most part, my team itself didn't really get too involved in the game until a late game Al Jordan. A lot of Colossal Retaliating helped me out. But yeah, the Pogs did a lot of the heavy lifting for me, and so did the Collins. which is what I want my team to do for the most part. The fourth round, I was up against the man who plays a team very similar to mine as often as I do, if not a little bit more often, though I think I'm still doing it a little more than he is, and that is Mr. Tom Kerr. Tom Kerr's scientist team that Jay played against. It was funny, the night before, he was talking about playing a swarm team, and I got a little antsy with him. It's like, dude, I'm the man who plays the swarm, not realizing he literally meant the figure swarm. Who he was using as his primary source of Colin. There was a little bit of a screw up in our game. For those of you who haven't, the Serpent Punisher and the Serpent Spider-Man are on the same pog, right? So as a result, Tom accidentally put it Punisher side up. His movement's the same and everything like that. Moves it all the way up. I do a certain number of things reacting to it as though it's a Serpent Punisher. And then he's like, I'm going to take my Serpent Spider-Man, you mean Serpent Punisher. I'm going to Hypersonic, you mean Sidestep. What's going on here, Tom? So unfortunately, we had to play out the game with the Punisher because, we didn't want to accuse anybody of cheating. And mistakes were made. This is probably one of the most harmless mistakes ever made. But Tom got his vulture in my face, did a lot of obnoxious things to me. There was a lot of hits I wanted to make that just I couldn't seem to make that could have made things go a little faster. Tom got to click number 3 on his round table really quickly, and it's my fault because I Hawkeyed the living crap out of Tom's team. Like, I Hawkeyed him so hard because for my Shield level 7, my 3 ID card call-ins were Hawkeye, Hulk, and Peggy Carter. And I just Hawkeyed so much stuff that he brought out that I was almost sick of using the character at one point. But then, of course, that got him to click number 3 very quickly. So the last 3 figures on Tom's team, when time was called, was the Muhammad Ali Superman box set Superman, Firestorm, and the Fast Forces Lex Luthor from Batman vs. Superman. None of which started the game on Tom's team. They all started on Tom's sideline. So when Tom turned around and said, you got 300 points, I was caught off guard completely. So I was 3-1. We cut to the top 4. Tom actually made it in on the top 4 because he had lost to you, right, Jay?
No, he beat me by the 5 points.
Okay. I thought he had lost to you, but still got like almost a win's worth of points in it. But he also scored 150 off me. His points kept him in the top 4, which was pretty exciting to hear that. At least 2 of us who went down there. There was 12 people in attendance. So actually, those of us who traveled made up a third of the people there. So in the first round of the single elimination, I'm playing as Jonathan Fournier, who is playing with Doc Ock, Clarion, Overdrive, Dr. Kilbrew, and Domino as his probability control source. The team it wasn't so much the team I was playing against. The game itself presented so many obnoxious situations for me to have to deal with that I really didn't want to have to deal with. But a certain amount of decision making on both sides ended up helping me in the long run. For one, I had initially attacked his team with my Hawkeye, and on what should have been basically a gimme shot on a overdrive turned into a miss. Left my Hawkeye right in the middle of his team, which he then decided to flurry with his Doc Ock on the next turn, not moving his team at all, which was a big bonus for me because he had attacked the guy on my team. I was able to colossal retaliate with the Atom, taking Overdrive out of the picture. So with Overdrive no longer a threat, I had the rest of his stuff to deal with, but he's still up on the 65-point Hawkeye. But he'd also started doing enough damage to my team and me using ID cards to get me to click 3 fairly quickly, so that I was able to call in the Elseworlds Chase Superman as my call-in for permanence, as it were, as a real boy. So basically every attack that Superman made killed the thing, which is why I really like that Superman. So it started with an ultra-heavy attack against a Doc Ock, followed up by a final shot on his Clarion on the last round, after last round was called, this being the ROC. ROC runs last round now. And I squeaked out a win on that one just on that last shot. He did score 115 points on me. I managed to score just over 200. So I get into the final round against Carlos Lombardi, who had, everybody was talking to the whole tournament was like, my God, this guy kicked my butt. And I see why. He was using Jakeem Thunder, Al Jordan, and the Joker's Wild Green Lantern and this is, of course, a 3-figure mystical theme team. He had a Supreme Intelligence on the Jakeem Thunder, and he had 3 ID cards on the side, including a Shield level 7, a Spider-Man, and I can't remember what the other one was. It was also another was it a Green Arrow? I want to say it was a Green Arrow. I might be wrong.
Yeah, it was.
It was a Green Arrow. Okay, cool. Oh, yeah, that's right. It was a Green Arrow. I remember because there was a major point in this game that was almost, I could almost consider a turning point of the game, as it were. So, oddly enough, this is the first time in the entire tournament I played against this is the third time I played against a theme team. I have won, by the point I get to the finals, I have chosen the map all of 0 times, which is fantastic because I had forgotten maps and we had the last second to decide, oh my God, we got to get maps for me. And luckily Tom wasn't using his WizKids office, and that was one of the 3 maps I chose. The other 2 were both sides of the legal Jean Grey and the Jean Grey Institute of Higher Learning and the Manhattan Bridge, respectively. So I put it in the office because, for one, if it's a Jakeem team, I want to force my opponent to play the game to the best of his ability. And that's one of the things that I like about the WizKids office is every team that's put in the office is basically forced to play to the highest of its potential. And if you can't outplay your opponent in the office, that's generally where things happen. Now, that's not to say Carlos played a hell of a game. And there was a lot of factors that really played in, including we can blame it. He can blame them. The ROC dice were not nice to him. But at the same time, he really doesn't. He can't blame the dice to another degree. He said himself because there's a little bit of decision making on some of the risks he took. Primarily spending a lot of attacks trying to get rid of my Atom and resulting in misses. Oddly enough, one of the big engagement points, he had, like you had done, poisoned one of my Pogs, which of course doesn't stop Colossal Retaliation, but he did know that my Retaliator was available and blocked himself in. So I was required to waste a shot that I knew full well was going to miss. I'm not kidding you guys. I made a shot not planning to hit with the Cosmic Spider-Man with the goal of breaking through walls. Now, the reason I wanted to break through some walls was that I needed a clear line on the Jakeem Thunder so that I could make a close combat attack with the Atom and do a bunch of damage to most of his team. Now, he was choosing Invincible quite often with his Al Jordan and his Jakeem Thunder, which meant it's a slow burn for me to have to do the damage. But I had the Pogs to engage in slow burn amounts of damage, so I was okay with that. But what couldn't have even gone better was that I rolled a critical hit with the Atom, hitting his entire team. Now, granted, it's still only the Al Jordan and the Jakeem were only taking 1, but based on the positioning, I was dealing 3 damage to the Joker's Wild Green Lantern, and because it's a roll of doubles, he takes knockback into a wall. So 4 damage got dealt to that Joker's Wild Green Lantern, putting me in a 35-point lead with an Atom in his face. Now, because the Atom is based to his characters, he's trying to get to a certain position in order to use the Chase Green Arrow. But his sidestep breakaways were not happening, and his attacks against my Atom were not happening, to the point where the last chance he had to even make a shot, like an actual range attack with his Green Arrow, was to roll breakaway with it. Luckily for him, he did, but he used the attack to hit my Devil Dinosaur. Now, Green Arrow doesn't let me use defense powers. Hey, guess where Devil Dinosaur's stop click is? His damage power. So he knew that, of course, put it all into attack, and put my Devil Dinosaur off of Pog calling range. Fair enough. Very good decision on that, because he knew full well if with the 1 or 2 Homocry side craps I still had on the board, or no, I had called in now the Drop Bears. I had gotten rid of 2 things. He doesn't want to see the Rockabilly Modocs. I can get behind that for sure. But at this point, I'm now able to Colossal Retaliate against the Green Arrow. He still hasn't killed my Atom yet. So I Colossal Retaliate against the Green Arrow, do 2 damage to that because it can't use his combat reflexes, make an attack with the Devil Dinosaur, and I have now killed the Green Arrow in addition to the Joker's Wild Green Lantern. So I'm now at a 115-point lead. And my opponent, or Carlos, hasn't really scored points in this matter. Even when he's finally killed the Atom, he's only scored 15 points, and all the Pogs that he's killing are worth none, right? And it's one of the things about this team. They put so much work into killing things, and then they look at the score, and it's like, oh, my score's still only in the double digits. And that's one of the pain points of the team, too. But he did manage to get the Devil Dinosaur down. And he got his Jakeem into I guess what he thought was a fairly safe position in a hallway. Or did I put it there? I don't remember. No, I put it there with the Ameritrade. So I put his Jakeem in an unfortunate position for him in a big hallway with my Ameridroid next to my Penguin Pog with Pulse Wave and the special token version of it. So it's able to do a 2 damage Pulse Wave. And I plop, at this point, the Green Arrow in front of him. I do 2 Pulse Wave damage to the Jakeem Thunder with the Penguin, and then I perplex up the damage and double range combat expert the damage on my Green Arrow to do 6 damage. At this point, the Jakeem Thunder can't survive even with his invincible. The 3 damage that's going to go through, I do manage to kill Jakeem Thunder. So now I can see Carlos is in a rough spot, and I don't blame him for seeing that. But he manages to kill my Penguin with 1 shot with his Al Jordan, and I follow on the turn. I poison his Al Jordan with my Al Jordan because that's the power I decided to choose. He's double token on his Al Jordan, so I make an attack with very low expectations on hitting, and I critically hit again. With the 1 damage on the Al Jordan's dealing 3 damage. That's 4 damage. And it takes me a couple minutes to recognize the fact that I've won the Quebec Provincial Championships. It was one heck of a tournament. Everybody played a really wicked game, and everybody was fantastic to play with. I hope to get a chance to get out to Montreal and meet the guys over at Geeky2 again. You guys all played, had a great time playing, all you guys. It was a ton of fun. And, hope to see some of you guys in Ontario this weekend. As this was the first week, of course, of ROC States and Provincials. And a lot of familiar names are showing up here and there, especially if you're on a regular to the Majestic site. A lot of the writers have been doing fairly well at their tournaments. Myself included, because, I started writing again. Or at least I'm starting to lose some sleep in order to get some articles out for Patrick. What are your big takeaways from this one, Jay?
This might be a tip that only applies to Tom, but always be sure that you know what click your opponent's teleporter is on. Be acutely aware, because I remember the turn when he did it. I was like, oh, well, I had no idea you were even there yet, Tom. You got there a little quickly, didn't you? That was one big thing, especially now because it's one of the few remaining resources. Personally, I find that in tournaments they go on so long. I get into a bit of a rut where it's like, oh, I'm playing the same map all day because I'm used to playing theme teams that ensure my map roll. So it's like, oh, I want map roll. I'll play the same thing as last round. Whether or not that's necessarily a good decision, which led to my choosing the not WizKid's office against Carlos, which ended up letting his Nick Fury and Green Arrow basically win the game. So critically thinking and not getting into a pattern. It reminds me of my game in the U.S. Cup last year against Kevin. where I basically started the game doing the same exact maneuver I'd done every single game that entire day leading up to the match of the top 4, when I should have actually done something else instead. So I guess the main takeaway is don't get yourself stuck into an opening move, opening strategy, one map that you want. Focus more on the strategic decisions that actually apply. Don't go on autopilot.
Fair enough. Yeah, I can get behind that. And play to your own knowledge, play to your own skills. Myself, I'm starting to realize that if I don't have 1,000 decisions that need to be made at the beginning of the turn, let alone throughout the turn, I tend to lose focus on the right decisions. I tend to make very quick-witted decisions, and I'm kind of forcing myself to make more and more decisions with my teams. It's part of why I chose a team that I did. Al-Jordan is very limited in how he can pick a power. Devil Dinosaur, I can only bring out certain pogs. And the Penguin, I have to read the board a little bit ahead of time. I mean, okay, 9 times out of 10, the first pog out of him is the Pulse Wave one because the sidestep gives you the extra mobility. Plus, it's Pulse Wave. But later on, as the game gets tighter and tighter, you start to look at that Psychic Blast one. You start to look at the Exploit Weakness one because their attack values are a little higher than our friend with the Pulse Wave. So, constant decision making really helped me out a lot, and I really like my team was so fun to play too. I think that was an important element. Like I can't see my opponents not having fun against it either. Like I've played against a ton of Devil Dinosaurs, and I always love just like knowing full well that sometimes when they're playing it, killing those pogs isn't necessarily the decision I need to be making. And either finding my way around it or just doing it and recognizing the danger I'm putting myself in, right? So it's kind of what I'm seeing on it. But yeah.
I was...
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
What?
Go ahead.
I was also happy with my team choice. Although I do admit it is obnoxiously annoying, I'm at least happy that I'm playing something that isn't Jakeem. Like, I like Jakeem, and I'm probably one of the few people in competitive Clixed who has read a comic that he's actually been in. So I like the character as a character, but I'm sick of him at this point. So I'm happy I played something other than Jakeem. My team is the worst to play against, but I'm at least happy I played something that was just not the most obvious play yet again. It's basically because I remember just realizing that Carlos's team was basically the old standard, I guess, the Matty G team, but just replaced Hank and Faust with Al Jordan. So, yeah, it's good to play stuff other than the most obvious things sometimes.
And sometimes, though, the most obvious stuff is the stuff you've already practiced against, too. And that's one of the risks you run nowadays by running the Jakeem is if somebody has found something or knows a few things about that figure, you're running at that level of play and you're kind of on equal ground to a certain degree. If they've taken into effect that figure exists and they know that they have to deal with that figure. But there's a certain amount of luck that got me through the Jakeem Thunder as well. So I can't 100% take a lot of, I can't really claim to brag on that one. Carlos played a heck of a game, and I got a lot of luck on 2 of my dice rolls that really took it to the next level. But granted, there's a full turn. I took 3 attacks with 3 different drop bears, all needing 7s, and couldn't hit a single one. One of them needed a 6 because I perplexed it with Al Jordan. So, so you can imagine. All right.
So what are you thinking? What are you thinking about how the metagame is going to be going forward? How Elseworlds ended up affecting everything in practice and whatnot?
Well, a lot of people were saying, hey, is Al Jordan going to be the quiet face? There were 3, maybe 4 in Quebec alone. I played against at least 2 of them. One of them on the same team as Claw, one of them on the same team as Jakeem Thunder, and I personally was playing one. Now, was mine necessarily the best choice for all people to be using? No. Is anybody in the world going to run a team like mine and be as successful as it? Maybe. But... And I'm not trying to brag. I'm just trying to say I play weird. So, but Elseworlds as well, if you're playing those move the teleporter teams, you've got things like the Elseworlds Superman, which was on mine, made a significant difference. The Green Arrow, massive difference on the team as well. So that's Al Jordan, the Superman, Elseworlds, Green Arrow. Was there anything else that I played that was Elseworlds? I don't remember off the top of my personal head.
I think
that's it.
So.
Yeah, and the
it's
Green
not
Arrow,
Elseworlds, but I mean, the Ameritrade, also fairly recent What If edition, made quite the impact as well.
Yeah,
which I don't think I really. Yeah.
Well, I'd seen the Ameritrade off the top at Worlds. Myself and at least 4 other people were playing it. The Ameritrade it's harder to see why he's so great. And there's a number of reasons that a lot of people miss out on or aren't quite catching with him. One of which is that, he's got a terrible attack value, and you're probably not going to hit with him. That's fine, because the ability to move a character within 6 squares of the Ameritrade is just an exposure, basically. And what's more is you can set up so much. The Ameritrade sets up a kill box. And if he also has the potential bonus of possibly doing some damage. And possibly doing 3 damage, I might add. I think I hit the Ameritrade once in the tournament, too. I don't think it was against you, though, Jay. I think it was against... I keep thinking it's against you, but I think I did it against somebody else. Either way, my Ameritrade hit once. I was like, awesome! He's dealing 3 damage to some stuff. I mean, you have invulnerable, invincible, and toughness, but... All right, cool. Right? And that displacement kill box effect that he has is a lot bigger on the right teams. Specifically, a team like myself or Tom is playing, where we're setting up round table actions, because you can do that before you do your round table stuff, because it's always going to happen, the moving of the character. It's a really powerful, potent effect that I don't think a lot of people understand the greatness of or recognize how great it is, Like, a lot of people say, oh, the Atom is better or the Wonder Woman is better. Well, they're different. I wouldn't say better. The Atom is great if you absolutely must do a bunch of damage to a bunch of targets. But if their Jakeem Thunder is choosing Invincible, the Atom is worthless in that case. So you really the Ameritrade is better for setting up something bigger than that, right? And I think that's one of those missing tunes, and a lot of people are just not getting, is that the damage on the Colossal Retaliation in the Ameritrade's case isn't the important part. That's the cherry on top. The character that you're taking from here to here, that's the important part. Because that could be upwards of 1, 2, 3, 2 across the character, and then 6 across the character. That's like a 10 square differential from where they are. Right? So it's one of those things people, not just like, oh my gosh, people are stupid. It's a lot of folks will be missing that because they're so used to Colossal Retaliation being the damage, do the damage. What's his name? Brimstone is a really good source of damage. But he's still got to make the initial hit on the attack, but he does have the poison on top of that. That's a strict damage point. The Ameritrade is, I'm going to say it again, he is not for the damage. He is for the displacement. It's one of the reasons that the tank is great, still to a certain degree, is that displacement. Your opponent's placement is something they set. Take that away from them, and you're driving them up the wall. That's my thoughts on it. Anything you want to kind of throw in on top of my long rant there?
Yeah, especially considering the Giants ignore everything from line of fire besides indoor blocking. You essentially just have free reign to dictate where your opponent's character is within 10 squares, like you said. That's really, really good. Really, 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 really good. Like, I think the only reason that he's not more well known is because the wording is a little weird, or people don't read it specifically, and they think you need to hit, right? So, like you said. So, yeah, make sure you read these things and then learn why it's so awesome. Especially, did you ever surprise anybody who didn't realize that you needed to hit for the effect? Or you didn't need to hit?
well, let's see. Tom, I don't think I did it too, because I think Tom beelined it for my Ameritrade, if I remember correctly. Might be wrong on that one.
He was also playing one, so he better know how it works.
So exactly, he should have darn well known better. My first opponent, I don't think knew what was happening when that happened either. But he's newer to competitive play, so the knowledge base might not be there.
Yeah.
I know Carlos definitely was like, oh yeah, okay, that's if that happened, that's the thing. Right? Like sometimes, like you can always tell the look on an opponent's face. He's like, I forgot that was on the board. Or, well, I kind of knew that was like they always have to look like, yeah, what's he gonna do with it though? Right? So,
I think my favorite.
Two surprises. No, I think there was maybe two surprises within the best.
Yeah, I think my favorite thing on top of everything else that he can do right now is how Ameritrade is just the best wrestler in Heroclix, where he can just take somebody out of the boxing ring and just throw them out.
Yeah. Throws them out of the ring. Oh my God, down the aisle. What's going on outside the ring? Unbelievable, ladies and gentlemen. He is, as the Macho Man would say, the cream of the crop, brother. Oh no, I totally.
The cream rises to the top.
On that one. Hold on. Ooh yeah, the cream rises to the top. Oh, it's one of the best videos on the internet ever, ladies and gentlemen. If you have to catch it, it's the Macho Man in an interview just pulling milk creamers out of nowhere and just using them as a prop. And it's the greatest wrestling promo ever. That's gonna cost us just by mentioning wrestling, I'm sure. Oh, Emily's in the chat.
Yeah,
how's it going, lady?
Yeah, we're sorry, YouTube. Unfortunately, my biggest takeaway, competitive-wise, from this weekend / Elseworlds and execution and seeing it in action, it's kind of weird because Jakeem's about to take a hit with the new rules, but right now, it's like we have Green Arrow, who works really well against most things in general, but not Jakeem. Because Jakeem has basically everything he has on the dial doesn't matter. In fact, it helps him against Green Arrow because he's got the energy shield. So, and then everything else he's got on the trait and possession and whatnot doesn't matter, isn't touched. So Green Arrow right now is making everything else worse, except for Jakeem. So it just makes Jakeem that much more potent, especially when, like I said, you can play him and you can play Al Jordan. You have Jakeem call in Nick when you need it, or you have Al Jordan call in Green Arrow. You don't need Jakeem to be the 140-point character calling in your 80-point character, you know? So just the amount of following up and the amount of powers you can take away now, especially powers that were not intended to be taken away, like a stop click that was so far down when you're dealing a character 5 damage with the range combat expert. It's yeah. But like I said previously, Jakeem is about to take a bit of a hit, so we'll see how everything ends up settling with him. And I was realizing how Jakeem is going to be unplayable and limited because it's not like you're going to be picking stealth every single turn from his trait just so he avoids being outwitted, or at least the other power being outwitted. So without all that extra stuff, like Supreme Intelligence, we're, at least as far as rock play goes, we're not going to be seeing so much of Jakeem in the near future. So, but right now, for states, I feel like Jakeem is just such a strong play. Yeah. But I'm not playing him. I'm just saying he's a strong play.
Yeah. One of the things I'm really interested to see is in the rules change with the way the beginning of the turn works and everything like that, how ID cards might be affected by it. I mean, I know one of the big things we like to do with ID cards, we like to sidestep and then ID card. It's something we've just been doing for a while. A lot of more forethought's going to be required as far as ID cards are concerned, especially when you consider a lot of people like the idea of using Jean Grey as well to use them. So I kind of want to see what the new rules as a whole kind of bring into scope and what they might change. We have the Canada Cup as our next major event, which will be the first one that we're able to play post-rules change. So it's going to be interesting, in the least, to see what might be different in that sense, in the overarching scheme of all things and whatnot.
Yeah, it's also interesting how we're getting 8 new Colossal Retaliators theoretically, but we're also the rules changes are all going to prevent the awesomeness of Colossal Retaliate and then call in with that character, or in your case, use the Ameritrade to start setup and then do the ID card afterwards once you've actually executed it.
I started putting some thought into that matter, though. The Ameritrade is going to happen. That's not negotiable. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going to be able to Ameritrade you. I'm going to be able to move you. So that's not as much of a planning effort as the sidestepping that I do use quite a bit, for that matter. Positioning before you call in is going to be important. Already have Nick Fury, Green Arrow as call-ins that ignore characters, and Hawkeye as call-ins that ignore characters for line of fire. Mispositioning that's going to make that a little bit of a requirement, or forced position to a certain degree. When I was playing against the Doc Ock team, the way I looked at the board, I needed my Pogs to body block me for a turn or two. Like, I needed to make my opponent look at that and go, not worth it. It's just not worth it to, try to break through all those Pogs, right? So those are some of the decisions that are going to have to be forced. Some of the decisions are going to have to be made and be aware of in the new rule set, for that matter. But in the current, I honestly, overall, I'm fine with the meta as it stands right now, because I didn't have to look at 100% penetration rate on the tank right now. My God, do I not miss that piece? Oh boy, am I ever not gonna miss it, for that matter.
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm also okay with there literally being one obvious choice as opposed to several. Because we're either going to, good players are going to win no matter what. Like, we saw that PJ won an event with Jakeem. But he was going to win that event anyway because it's him, right? So the good players, if they decide to win with Jakeem, that's whatever. But we're still going to have we're going to have creative players making their own teams and winning with them. Or we're going to have people playing Jakeem and aren't necessarily as good, losing to better players. So it'll all balance itself out, hopefully.
Also, take into consideration, guys, my team, when I was playing against the Jakeem Thunder, was blanketed with Pulse Wave. I was using Homicide Crabs. I was using, the Penguins. Pulse Wave was an important factor in my being able to beat Jakeem Thunder. And Pulse Wave will always be a factor in being able to take out a character like Jakeem Thunder. So just be aware of that extra element, too, is Pulse Wave is important. You got to find the sources of it in order to make it work. And in my case, my Pulse Wave was very small, but that small Pulse Wave could just be enough. Riptide could just be enough to help deal with and whittle down. Because once you're past the 18 defense, you're in a better place, and you can force your way through that Jakeem Thunder. That's how I did it. That was my focus.
Hey, WizKids. Yeah. Where's our Pulse Wave call-in? How about that thing? That would be right thing right about now.
3 of them are called Homicide Crab, and 1 of them is called Penguin. Or Robo Penguin. Sorry, there's 5. Sorry. 3 of them are called Homicide Crab. 1 is called Robo Penguin with +1 to all stats, and the other one is Robo Penguin with a 9 attack. Here's your Pulse Wave call-ins. All right. But overall, again, great weekend. And for those of you interested in this weekend's upcoming states and provincials, I'm pulling. Okay, the link is in the description below, but I'm going to tell you anyway because I love you guys. And I want to give you guys a chance to hear it from me, because some people prefer to hear things and see things as opposed to looking them up. But for this coming weekend, Sunday, August 6th in Alabama, Bud's Place Games in Leeds. Also, in Arkansas, Game Goblins in Little Rock on Saturday, August 5th. Also on Saturday, August 5th in British Columbia, the Magic Stronghold Games in Vancouver. Also Saturday, August 5th, DJ's Collectible Shop in Hanford, California. Following up with that, we also have in Delaware, TD4W Games in Dover, Delaware. E&D Games in Port Richey, Florida on August 5th. August 6th in Hawaii, the Armchair Adventurer in Honolulu. In Iowa, Hobbytown Waterloo in Waterloo, August 5th as well. Wizards Asylum in Wichita, Kansas. The Rusty Scabbard on August 6th in Lexington, Kentucky. The Complex in Scarborough, is it Scarborough or Scarborough, Maine? Hopefully those of you in Maine know what I'm saying. In Sunday, August 6th. Eternal Games in Warren, Michigan, a place I've played. Fantastic venue, gigantic venue, is playing on Saturday, August 5th. Also on Saturday, August 5th in New Jersey, Adventureland store in Voorhees, New Jersey. That is an awesome store name or city name. In Nevada, We Play Games, spelled W-I-I, in Las Vegas, Nevada, on Saturday, August 5th. Also Saturday, August 5th, North Carolina has Atomic Empire in Streetsboro. On Sunday, August 6th, in Nova Scotia, Gametronics, New Minas. And then on August 5th in Ontario, the one I'm running, the Comic Warehouse in Brampton, that's 20 Strathern Avenue in Brampton. $15 entry on that one. I'll load it up because we're going to talk about that next anyway. In Pennsylvania, the Adventurers Guild in Harrisburg on August 6th in Rhode Island. Untapped Games in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. In Dragon's Den Comics and Games in Sioux Falls, South Dakota on August 5th. In Tennessee, Frontline Games, Clarksville on August 5th as well. Also on August 5th, Space Cadets Collections, Oak Ridge, North Texas. Also on the 5th, Game Haven Bountiful in Bountiful, Utah. On Sunday, August 6th, Killer Rabbit Comics and Games in Williston, Vermont. And then on August 5th, we also have Cosmic Comics and Games, LLC in Centralia, Washington. And then we also have the Four Horsemen's Comics and Gamings in Morgantown, West Virginia on Saturday, August 5th to wrap up the last set of states events. I personally, Jay is actually going to be heading to Las Vegas this weekend, but I'm going to be. What's that?
I was hoping to keep that one a surprise.
Oh!
I was going to say, I'll be at one of the ones in the States. Maybe you'll see me if you're in the right state.
Give me a break. You were there last year anyway.
Oh, they know. Yeah, whatever.
It's less of a surprise if you've been there before.
That's true.
On August 5th at 10 a.m., registration start time, Comic Warehouse at 20 Strathern Avenue in Brampton, Ontario, Canada. I'm going to be running the Ontario Provincial Championships. Registration time starts at 10. Start time is at 11. And the entry fee is $15. That's Canadian dollars if you come in from south of the border. We also, of course, have the standard rock prizing. We've also bulked it up with a big stack of purchasable Con LEs. So we have extra Hank Pym's, the Hank Pym box set, the one that comes with the tank. Got to reverse that now because the Hank Pym is the better thing in there, right? We got Bebop Rocksteadies. We have the Red Hulk Spirit of Vengeance. Excuse me. We have Muhammad Ali and the Superman boxing ring. We have a bunch of those things. Plus, we have a bunch of the Whiz Kids con exclusive bystander tokens to bulk up the prizing with as well. So we have the standard rock prizing plus all of the nonsense I've got from all the extra stuff in cons. So we're just sharing that with the store as well. So check it out if you're planning on coming. We're also trying to organize some side events as well just to keep those players occupied. If you don't make the cut, it's always worth it to try something else. We're considering a sealed tournament, possibly for some of the extra on top of what I already have prizes, as well as some battle royales to get some extra stuff on top of that. So all kinds of neat stuff, the neat prizing for the event that we're really excited to be handing out. And we hope to see you guys there one more time. This Comic Warehouse at 20 Strathern Avenue in Brampton. Those of you watching the show, of course, if you want to support us directly, check us out at patreon.com/marriedwithclicks to support us a little bit directly. If you're any part of the patron program, you are able to join in on the patron hangout, which we are now confirming for August 11th. That is a Friday night at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is the time zone we use. So if you want to check us out again, patreon.com/Clixed, and check out some of the cool bonuses that we have to let you support us as a channel, and we show our appreciation greatly with all of these things that we do. If you happen to be watching live right now in the chat, it doesn't look like there's a lot of questions in there, so get your questions in the chat while we're live. Put in capital letters question ahead of it in order for us to very easily catch it in the chat. In case you guys start pumping out a ton of questions, I need to know what are comments and what are questions while we're going through the live chat. But of course, we're still competing with states and ROC state championships this weekend. So I'm pretty sure there's not as many live folks as we usually get. But we're going to start with our questions, unless you have anything else to throw into this show there, Jay?
I'm sad that I'm going to miss both our local provincials. I'm also very sad that, therefore, the same day is going to be Eternal Games, which is just one of my favorite stores.
And it's not as far from where we are.
When I saw that it was the same day as ours, I just got really sad. And it also means Adam can't come to ours, and it's just all sorts of unfortunate. But I am looking forward to Vegas. If I recall correctly, it's the same store as last year. That was a really nice store, very spacious, good stock, well run. I'm looking forward to it. I'm also looking forward to going to the other stores in the area because they have a fair amount from what I know. So fun weekend there. I'm going to miss you guys here.
Yeah. Won't miss Adam Cole, though. Just kidding, buddy. We love you. All right. But first off, speaking of patrons, our long-running patron, Mr. Michael Fedor, has a question. He wants to know, he was wondering again, since seeing the Quebec Provincials, since Heroclix is an international game, does WizKids print their power cards and rulebooks in other languages like French, Spanish, or Portuguese? He also goes on to say, oh, and congratulations, Jason, on your first-place win. Somebody jumps in there and says, if they do, Quebec hasn't received any French cards, which is a pity. I think the game would be doing much better in the province of Quebec if French was available. I don't doubt that either. I believe extra languages are available in Europe, but that is done by a different game publisher helping them out in that process. I know Spanish language cards are available, if I remember correctly, through that site. They also do print and play as a result of that. So I think that is a leg that needs to get, or a part of the game that needs to be addressed eventually. I'm not sure if WizKids has the resources for that yet, but we'll see. I don't know, Jay, your thoughts on the matter?
I think that they need to, they could serve to expand the language base, especially considering that there is somewhat of a European fan base as well. We've seen that they have conventions there too. There's Germany. I know some players are there, and just in general. I think the other problem is that sometimes Spanish cards are available whether or not you want them. I've seen some people in the States posting that they got them and couldn't play the figures. So some sort of way to exchange those would be good if WizKids could do that as well.
All right. Next up, Stephen Clark Jr. What is the best map for Jakeem Thunder, Goblin King, and Overdrive with Spider-Man and Nightwing ID cards? Wow, how very specific his question happens to be. Also goes on to congratulate me on the win in Quebec. Thanks very much for all the congratulations. It's been a little overwhelming. I haven't done this yet, this whole winning a tournament thing. Or winning a big tournament anyway, or a notable tournament. So it's a little weird that everybody's congratulating me and it's coming at all ends and whatnot. So, oh boy, it's something. It's something to say the least. As for a map with Jakeem Thunder, Goblin King, Overdrive, and Spider-Man and Nightwing ID cards, a very specific choice of things. I feel like once you've included Spider-Man, the Spider-Man ID card, as long as you're using the Cosmic Spider-Man with that, the map will not matter if you're taking a shot with that. It's kind of the way I see that one in particular. Now, if it's not the Cosmic Spider-Man, that's another question altogether. But I think a lot of elevated terrain for the most part, because most of the new Spider-Mans do have some way of ignoring elevated terrain for movement. That will go a long way. Those are my thoughts on the matter. Jay, anything you want to add there?
My answer is going to be that there isn't one best map for your team. You actually have 3 best maps to your team. One of each being for a different situation based on what your opponent is playing. Like maybe you want to play the WizKids Office if your opponent is playing a Nick Fury Con and or Green Arrow, especially because Hypersonic, which King can pick, and Goblin King can pick work well when there's a lot of walls and whatnot, whereas another option you might want could be more open. I really like the Manhattan Bridge right now, just in general. Just especially like the that you can start off in the little elevated section and mess around with overdrive-based teams by basically forcing them to attack only one specific character, depending on how the team is constructed exactly. So I mentioned WizKids Office. If you want something extremely open, and you have access to it, which you might not necessarily. I really like the Sporting Arena map, because it's just basically no blocking, if I recall correctly. Yeah, so for that particular team, because you can do anything, it's more just a question of having a number of different maps with different kinds of terrain. Because when you can pick any power, you can do anything you want, really. So just pick 3 different maps that work against different kinds of opponents.
Yeah, and that's kind of what you're in the general map rule of maps. For that matter, I just happen to point out that once you get the Cosmic Spider-Man involved, you'll cut a path for the most part. So ultimately, where you go won't fully matter. All right. Next up, Dan Durrett. When you have dozens of team ideas for a tournament, how does someone narrow down what to play? There's a word for this. Jay, do you know that word?
Does it start with a P?
I feel like it starts with a P. What do you think?
I think it starts with a P. I'm 99% sure.
Wait, I thought it was sarcasm. According to a very sleepy, very drunk Tom. Long story short, we're being facetious. It's practice. Play those teams, because that's the source of practice, and that makes you, 1, more aware of what you're willing and able to do better with, and 2, how to just get better with that team itself. And that's where it all stems from, right? That's why we say practice makes your team better. It's an extension of the phrasing practice makes perfect. I say it differently in the sense of the show because we're trying to brand ourselves somehow. But the long and the short of it is, if you play those teams, at least one game with your teams is enough to get a good idea of what team you're like. You can play one game with a team and just be like, I'm not comfortable with how this team plays, and that's practice. So you move on to the next team. Is this team's a little bit more comfortable, but I feel like I'm missing something from this team. So that's where you now start to iterate on that team and get a little bit more of the game in there. So with this, if you have dozens of team ideas, you have to get the time to play them. And if you can't really play them, get a map out, start moving some figures around, get a feel for it, maybe throw, a couple tokens to represent what you're expecting to play against there, and just try to deal with whatever you come up with as far as the team is concerned. All of that put together will help you decide from your dozens of team ideas which one's going to be the one you play. Because I can write 1,000 teams out, come up with 1,000 team ideas, but really there's going to be one that reads Jason and bleeds Jason and makes me go, yeah, this is the one I'm going to use. And that's kind of what happened with the team I had. Like, I had Jakeem variants coming out of my rear end, but then Al Jordan came out. I saw him and I was like, I got to be able to do something with this guy. So I'm going to try to do something with this guy. And I did. And that's, I played a couple games with it just to get a feel for it, adjusted a few ID cards, talked to Tom about it. Then once I talked to Tom, I talked to Jay and Mike about it. And since nobody else had any other suggestions beyond that, I played it out again. I got a good feel for it. So playing is so important for coming up with what team you're going to play. But Jay, do you have anything you want to add to that? Because you're also a guy who sits on dozens of team ideas, more so than myself.
Yeah, my usual thing is make the best team first, doubt it, make other teams, go back to the first team, doubt, play a team that is not as good. I guess just general tips. Number 1, which is a very me thing, is don't play something just because it's more obscure. it could be obscure for a reason. Like, the surprise factor, as Jason has said before, is not going to be the winning thing alone. Because by the time you get to the cut rounds, everybody knows what everybody else is playing. So don't just be like Jay and play more less well-known characters just because of that fact. But on the other side of the spectrum, don't just play figures because they're well-known. Like, I've seen people... Like, I played against somebody recently who was playing the Joker's Wild Green Lantern and didn't really seem to understand how it worked, which ended up working against him because he didn't know how the figure he was playing was working. But, of course, when you're playing Jakeem, you automatically want to play that. And then, you know, so make sure you actually know the figures work. Don't just play Jakeem necessarily if you're more experienced, as an example, because that kind of power picking stuff is going to be way more complicated and might not translate into results when you don't know what you're doing with it, which also combines with practice. So just in general, make sure you have a good feel for it. Work with a play style that works best with you. Don't just play something because you think it's a must.
Yeah. And Emily, who's one of actually the folks that traveled, the wonderful lady that traveled with us, she put in here in the chat that practice is awesome and playing my team. She's been playing her team so much better ever since practice. In fact, we practiced the night before because Jay didn't actually have a chance to practice with his team. Emily's been using her team for a while, but there were some decisions we needed to make at the last second. It helped Jay decide on what he was going to run in the case of his team. It also helped us talk Emily into using ID cards because at one point her team had a Henry on it, and but no ID cards. And we looked at it and said, we're pretty sure the ID cards might be a better option. And then we started to talk out the ID cards that she could be using, and came up with and we actually videoed the entire discussion about what we were going to decide to do. She had enough Blades Claws on her team to justify a Swordsman ID card, if not for using Swordsman, for the inspiration alone to flurry Blades Claws with some characters. So this is all stuff we got from practicing with her team and seeing some of the shortcomings and some of the things that could fix it, you know? And that's one of the beauties of ID cards as well, is it's a low point investment fix to your team that you just might need, so you can still play a team that's an important way to play for you, right? My team consists of a ton of ID cards, but I so desperately wanted to play a Pog team so bad. Like, I just wanted Pogs everywhere. Like, at one point I had Peter the Hunter on my team. I'm not kidding you. So it was almost at one point I was able to get like, was it 7, 8 plus Pogs on the board, and just kind of go, all right, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Of course, that's at minimum 8 movements of the round table if I force attacks, or a bunch of Colossal Retaliation if it should work as well. I think I actually one point had only 1 Colossal Retaliator on my team, and then something else on the board with my team, and Tom suggested putting a Retaliator on another or doubling up on Retaliators, and I kind of like it was a space my head was at, and sometimes hearing it from another person is all you need. I'm extending this to give more people a chance, of course, to ask a question, but it doesn't look like it happened. But a lot of people are agreeing with the idea of play testing out your team, and practicing with it. So before we go on to the boring stuff, Jay, is there anything you want to close out with?
Close the show with?
Yeah.
I guess specifically right now, reiterating, don't just play Jakeem because he's the thing. Both because, I mean, you did say before that the obvious play is obvious for a reason, but I also feel like there's drawbacks where it leads to counter building because Jakeem is the one thing right now. So don't just play Jakeem because he's popular, because you might not necessarily be able to play him the best. You might not have the stuff that works with him the best. You might not have enough practice with him the best. And because other people might be thinking of ways to beat that Jakeem. So this is for a right now kind of point, well, especially since we have another couple states in a few days. That's just something to consider.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, play, like Jay, just to kind of reiterate on what Jay is saying, play what you're comfortable with. Play what you feel you know how to use, and make sure you know how to make your decisions with it. And if you're like I used to be, and you're playing real quick, if you're already playing quick, slowing down for a couple more seconds to kind of look at what you do on the board can actually start to go a long way. And Jay actually pointed out during our game, he said, I'm afraid of patient Jason. Or something to that effect. Because I went from the guy who basically looks like he's playing speed chess when he plays Heroclix to hesitating for a second, counting out the decisions a lot more, and making them a little better. Part of that comes with practice. Part of that takes a little bit of hesitation, a little bit of forethought. Think about everything you're going to do before you do everything. And think of what could go wrong and be able to come up with a backup plan if something goes wrong. Put all of that together, and things will go a lot better for you in the game. And that, that's I think one of the biggest changes I made going into this, because I've had my long spill of not being able to, pull off a big competitive win. And there was 12 people in attendance on this, so it's still not a massive size tournament win for me in that sense. But it was still an important tournament win to me. And part of it, a part of the winning was increasing my patience level and thinking out my turn just a little bit more. So I went from like a 1 minute turn to about a 2 to 3 minute turn at most. And that's still not slow play. You know what I mean? So patience goes a long way as well.
Right. That game was one of the more chessy kind of games that I've had in recent memory, where it was very much both of us were not stalling, but thinking out our turns very, very carefully, because any wrong move could spell doom.
And that's literally it. Like, our two teams, one square incorrect, one slight sidestep in the wrong direction, one wrong misplaced damage completely threw the pace of that game massively, or one incorrect knockback. You know what? Even when I tried to actually knock back on purpose, things did not go my way. Honestly, I should have taken a big chance in hindsight. When I TK'd and tried to knock back that one guy, I should have just given Al Jordan Precision Strike and just gone for your Joker. And even that wouldn't have worked because Master God. Who am I kidding? So, like, honestly, I was in such a bad place and when they called last round, it took me like 3 minutes to just come to terms with, yeah, it's not happening. So I just made a pulse wave attack for the sake of it.
Yeah, I remember it was kind of like a checkmatey kind of move where I knew that there was nothing you can do, but you just needed a couple minutes, which is kind of what I like about the last round thing, is that you can really think those decisions out. And again, it reminds me of that U.S. Cup game where Kevin and I were both just like, we're both playing ID card-based teams. We don't actually know who's winning. Let's actually take the few minutes to actually realize who's winning so we can both make the proper decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and again, well, go ahead.
No, I'm going to say that after you.
I was just going to say, Rock, last round is working for me. I like it a lot. And for everybody who was like, oh, but people can use it to slow play even more. They really can't. By the time last round is called, you can almost math out the way a game is going to go, and almost nobody takes the last round for the most part. It's just kind of a clean way to end things for sure. What were you going to say, though, Jay?
I was going to say that I feel like, last round, the benefits are definitely so good that they balance out the drawbacks. Just being able to have that last turn and really we're not having the problem of I needed 30 more seconds to win the game, which I've had before, and it is just one of the worst things.
Yeah.
It's just when you know you can win, but the clock dictating that is just so terrible sometimes when that happens.
And because I didn't win the dice roll, in the entire tournament, time got called in 3 of my games, and in all 3, I didn't win map roll. That's a given, because I only won 1 map roll all day, and I was the active player on the turn. I was able to go, whoa, hold on a second. Do I have other things I can do? And sometimes it was just drop the dice and I won. you know? So it's like, I'm actually done with the turn because I have a point lead. And when I was playing against Tom, it was my turn, and Tom just kind of dropped it and said, "You scored my team." I was like, "Oh, okay, we're done." So,
the thing I actually wanted to say was in regards to decision making and the current environment. I know PJ has said that the more decisions you can make your opponent make, the more chance that they'll screw it up. Absolutely love and is part of the inspiration for my team. But I also feel like it's worth remembering that it can work in the other direction. Like in this day of pick a power and ID cards, if you give yourself too much room of different options, when you have a character who can literally pick any power, and then you have, oh wait, do I not use this character? Do I just instead use him as a support piece for a call? Just all those kinds of decisions can put you in that corner as well, where you can make the wrong decision because you just have too much access to different things you can do.
Yeah.
So yeah, don't put yourself in the corner of taking of wasting time also in a game because you're just having to balance out too many options and maybe making the wrong decision because there's just so many options that look appealing.
Other times too, you get a guy like me. It's like I have too many decisions to make. You're right. Give me a second. All right, let's make the right one. So,
yeah, it really like to make. Okay, no, never mind.
no. It makes you think. No. We're gonna drag this to its conclusion.
Makes me really like Al Jordan and Goblin King a lot more, just because they're not the focal point of your team. So you have basically a Swiss. Instead of having a pick a power main character, you have basically a support piece who is going to most of the time pick the same thing. Like against Carlos, it was Invincible and Tiny almost every time. You were Invincible Prob. Goblin King is going to be Perplex and Prob. So you essentially have a support piece who can also attack, which just changes that dynamic so much where it's not, oh, how is my Jakeem attacking, but, oh, how is my Al Jordan helping out the rest of the team?
Yeah. I had, honestly, so many games with Al Jordan where it was like, well, I don't need Prob right now. I need you to die. Al Jordan, could you do the job for me? And he's just like, sure, Jason, I got this. And it's important to understand that Al Jordan and the Goblin King, at particularly low points, don't underestimate those support characters because they can turn around on you very quickly. You ever seen a hypersonic Al Jordan coming at you and just go, uh-oh, that's a thing he can do. Uh-oh.
I mean, Goblin King has 4 printed damage already for 75 points and range. Like, in the right situation, he could even be a Perplex and range combat expert. He could do 7 damage, theoretically.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. I also just want to finish off by emphasizing that I'm not saying not to play Jakeem Thunder as a general rule. I am more saying consider why it might not be a good decision. Don't just play him because it's the thing to do. There are factors based around building your team, and in this environment where it seems like there's one obvious play, there could be other things to play.
Also, local meta matters. Knowing the location you're going to and the style of play those people engage in helps you make a decision more on the characters that you're able to play or which team you're able to get away with.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, for the most part, a Jakeem Thunder team is what you play when you have no idea what to expect out of everyone else, or if you expect to see a Jakeem out of everyone else. Whereas something like my team, I expected to see a few Jakeem Thunders. I didn't expect to see as few as I did, but I also didn't expect to see as few players as we did. And both of those factored in majorly into me being able to succeed. And, you know, I was still able to squeeze it past at least one Jakeem. So.
Yeah, for Toronto, or I guess for Brampton specifically, that general area for next week's provincials, we are going to have some players who are going to be playing the more standard competitive. But I also know that we have locals who are going to be playing stuff that is going to hit other players completely by surprise because our locals like to play their own kind of tech. So Yeah, definitely consider what your locals are going to be playing when they have specific play styles like we do here in particular.
I mean, you don't have to expect anything out of me. I'm judging. So, and Jay's not going to be. So.
Oh, yeah.
So, but Tom will be, and I don't think I've ever seen Tom play the same team twice. Nope, I have seen him play the same team twice. Who am I kidding? The only thing I've ever seen him it was the Mary Marvel team. He played the same thing twice. The only thing he changed was his sideline options. So,
well, he also played the Devil. Didn't he play Devil Dinosaur past in the ROC World Cup too, in addition to the Super Q?
Yeah. So, but again, sideline choices changed.
That's so true.
So. Be aware of that. That's the only thing he had to change, but that's a change still. So
his efficiency can also vary depending on whether or not he's deciding to borrow stuff or not.
Oh yeah, yeah. Tom is really good at using the library of Jason Andra. So, or the library of Pain, as it were called. Mike Payne, that is. All right. But with that said, guys, I want to thank everybody for joining us live. Thank you for watching us in the archive. And we want to thank our sponsors as well over at hcrealms.com. Lots of cool stuff over at HC Realms. Check out the forums. Check out the unit section. Unit section is probably the fundamental tool for building your teams without having to dig through your boxes of figures. It is updated on the regular. Look at that. They just added the Ape Superman, Ape Flash, and Invisible Plane. I'm almost considering using the Invisible Plane, and it's as easy as going to the WizKids DC stuff, finding that Invisible Plane in here somewhere, and adding it to your team. Or look, I might want to play Zeus. There we go. I added 2 Zeuses to my team very easily. You can also take one out, and it's already doing your team math for you. If I wanted to play Zeus with a Doomsday, look at that. I got a 480-point team. I'm probably not playing that anytime in the metagame, but, just give you an idea of how this tool works and how useful it is. You can also find a figure. Let's say I take Sinestro and add a copy of it to my collection. I don't happen to be logged in right now, do I? Which is probably, oh yeah, no, you can increase your halves, increase your wants, increase your keeps, however you feel like with this tool. It's nice and well kept for you, and it allows you to see what you do and do not have. Also, check out the forums. It's where the conversation is happening. Check out this ROC tab, because you'll find things like the listings of the state provincials and things that they had to make a change on it, like the change to the map that they had to make, which is this very Logan-esque kind of looking map. Very cool map. I like getting a good look at it. Mine doesn't say top 4. Mine says Quebec on it, but that's the big diff. Anyway, while you're also on this page, check out the shop section. They have some really cool stuff that you can buy. And if you put on the coupon code MARRIED, you can get yourself 10% off off your purchase. And it also goes to us to help support the channel. As well, we are also brought to you in part by MajesticCCG.com, run by Mr. Patrick Iboko himself. MajesticCCG.com is your one-stop source of all kinds of information here. The brain, the think tank, as it were. For free, you can even get access to some of the articles, such as The Areas of Disinterest, written by one Jason Collins. I've heard of that guy. It's pretty cool. But anyway, it's one of the first articles written in a while. Also, articles by Mr. J. Solomon are available there. And if you want some of the premium content, check out MajesticCCG.com/Apex-Insiders to get you some of the brainchilds of some of the greatest in the game, including one Mr. Paris Gordon, one Mr. Adam Freeman, one Mr. PJ Bowen, Aaron Cantu, among others, AJ Pfeiffer, and Tiago Pinto Luluz. All great contributors to the site. $3 a month gets you access to the premium site. It's been a great weekend at States Provincials this weekend. It was great to hear that Alberta had a great turnout in the 20 pluses. It was great to see 12 people at the Quebec event, and I hope to see more next year if I do get a chance to get out there next year. I guess it's a title I'm required to defend, as it were. So I might find myself out there as well. But if you guys are getting out to your states this coming weekend, August 5th and 6th, especially if you're coming out to the Comic Warehouse at 20 Strathern Avenue in Brampton, remember to get your teams ready. Think up those ideas. And when you think up those ideas, remember to get some practice, guys, because practice
makes
your
team
better. I was actually going to cut to a clip of Tom singing in the car, but then I realized the MCA would kill us. So we're just going to exit awkwardly as we do. Have a good night, everybody.